Please welcome His Excellency Omar Sultan Al-Olama, the Minister of State for AI, Digital Economy and Remote Work Applications in the United Arab Emirates, and Dan Murphy, an anchor and correspondent at CNBC.
So much, everyone, and good morning again. What an excellent way to kick off the conversation here at the Milken Summit. Dan Murphy with you from CNBC, and Your Excellency, a warm welcome. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I think it's going to be a great conversation.
So we have so much to talk about with regards to what is actually happening in the AI space, what's happening here in the Gulf, what's happening with all of this investment. In particular, in the last few years, what we've seen is the UAE really moving from talking about artificial intelligence to deploying AI at scale across the government and, of course, across a whole range of sectors as well. Just in the last month, also another major inflection point with the US approving the export of NVIDIA's most advanced chips to the UAE and to Saudi Arabia. So to unpack what this means for the UAE and the wider region, and of course where we stand in the global AI race, I'm so happy His Excellency is here. So Your Excellency, set the scene for us. When you look at the global AI race today, where does the UAE stand in what has been a really, really incredible year of growth, but also a year of some concern as well?
Thank you. I think this has been not a race, it's possibly a marathon. We've been doing this for a long time. So the UAE has been in this race for 8 years, and the pace isn't slowing down, it's just speeding up. And what we've seen over the last 8 years is that countries moved from putting big ambitions in the domain of artificial intelligence. So the UAE was one of the first movers, many other countries followed suit, but it was very big ambitions that didn't really translate into anything meaningful. When it comes to the UAE's, let's say, momentum here, the first thing is, since 2014, we've invested over 500 billion dirhams in artificial intelligence. So the numbers are substantial. If you look at the kind of projects that the UAE announced, Stargate, other projects where we're supporting the development of infrastructure in the US and in other countries as well, we really are, I think, market leaders in terms of our size and our geography, but also we are one of the top players in the world. Now, there are different ways to gauge whether you are really at the forefront or you are, one of the people that are trying to catch up. If you look at BCG's index on AI talent flows globally, because talent is what's going to develop this at the end of the day, the UAE ranks first globally in AI talent retention and third globally in AI talent attraction. All right, so if these people can go and work anywhere in the world, they choose the UAE as one of the top 3 destinations where they reside. The second thing, when it comes to AI deployment overall, Stanford ranks the UAE as 5th globally. There are certain rankings that rank us as 3rd. So we are between 3rd and 5th, I think, globally. For our size, this means that we are a pace setter. And I think the larger countries are going to come to the UAE because of its agility, its ability to deploy much faster, the diversity of the people that are here, the cutting-edge infrastructure. So I think we are going to be a main player in this race.
Milken's theme this year is progress with purpose. So when you think about the measurement of all of this, how do you also ensure that that investment that you spoke about is ultimately benefiting people here in the UAE?
That's a great question. Most people look at AI and they look at productivity gains, they look at economic returns. That's great if you look at it in a very vertical sense. So what does it translate to in terms of savings? We have that metric for measurement when it comes to energy. Right? So how many barrels of oil are we producing? How many more barrels of oil can we produce? Or how can we reduce the cost of production using artificial intelligence? We've had savings so far of around 500 million dirhams. That's year on year, but we are seeing as well much more savings over time. When you look at the broad sense in which the UAE is actually looking at AI deployment, it's not on productivity gains or just economic returns. We're looking at AI for quality of life improvement. If you look at improving quality of life, the end product of that will be productivity gains and it will be economic returns. But it will ensure that you will never go into controversial uses of AI. And that's what we care about. We don't care about being the best user of AI but displacing millions of people. We don't want to become a surveillance state. We don't want to become a state where very few benefit from the deployment of AI, and many people are actually harmed by it. So when you focus on quality of life improvement, you ensure that everyone is set on the right track and that no one looks at it from just one vertical perspective, everyone looks at it holistically.
It's interesting as well because this year has really been marked by huge investments in CapEx on the infrastructure layer. We're seeing huge data center build-outs as well. There's a lot of capacity that's now being installed. At the same time as well, public market valuations skyrocketing stateside. When people like Ray Dalio say bubble, you say what?
I say bubble. No, so it depends on what time frame you're looking at. So the dot-com bubble was a bubble in that time period, right, in a short time scale. And many people that called the dot-com bubble were right. Now, if you look at it in hindsight, the internet wasn't a bubble. It came back roaring. The largest companies in the world became internet companies, and it transformed our lives. If your time frame was 5 years, then the word bubble was right. If your time frame was 20, then the word bubble was wrong, because the numbers today are much higher than they ever were. And in the UAE, we don't look at short-term horizons. We never did since our founding, and we never will. We believe in the long-term horizon in everything we do. And our planning isn't for looking at what's going to happen next year or the year after. I'm going to give you a simple example. Look at the UAE's investments. We haven't invested in hype. We've invested in infrastructure. Will people need electricity infrastructure and energy infrastructure 10 years down the line? Absolutely. Will it be necessarily used for AI? It could be. It could be used for something else. Most of the infrastructure we are building is going to be useful whether there is a bubble or not. And this is, I think, the secret. The secret is we're not looking at the hype cycle. We're actually looking at the trajectory of where this is going. And another great example of how the UAE thinks. So there were so many technologies over the last few decades that were extremely, hype-focused. So blockchain for one point of time was the IT technology. IoT was the IT technology. Metaverse was the IT technology. The UAE has not had a single ministerial portfolio dedicated to any of those, right? So there wasn't a minister of IoT or a minister of Metaverse or a minister of blockchain. And you actually look back and you say, okay, 8 years ago, the UAE had a minister for artificial intelligence. What were they seeing that others weren't seeing? We were seeing the trajectory, that AI isn't going to be something that is going to be a fad. It's been around for more than 50 years. It's a technology that has slowly but surely taken over many facets of our lives. And we as a country want to ensure that our citizens and our residents are the best users of this technology, that we wield it to serve them, and that we ensure that they have the best quality of life because of it.
But in the short term, you're not concerned about the sustainability of the financing of some of these large-scale AI infrastructure build-outs?
It absolutely may be a bubble. Look, to be honest, I'm not on the investment side. I think you should speak to the ministers and the officials that are involved in investment. I think long-term, it's not going to be a bubble. The genie has left the bottle. There's no way that we're going to go back because of the capabilities we have today. You're able to answer any question with the click of a button. You're able to access so much immense knowledge and so many capabilities with agents and otherwise. I don't think we're going to go back. So from my vantage point, we're only going forward, right? Now, okay, whether the companies that are worth 5 trillion today are going to be worth 5 trillion, next year, I'm actually not sure. There are fundamentals here. So if the promise is met and the AI does achieve abundance, then these numbers are meaningless, right? It could be 50 trillion tomorrow. If AI doesn't, then these numbers are overvalued. I think today it's more or less a gamble. Whoever makes a statement, whether it's a bubble or not, is putting their chips on one side or the other. I don't think that way. My job is to look at the technical deployment of AI, and my job is to look at the trajectory. And the trajectory means that we're only going to go to more and more use and more deployment.
Speaking of chips, it's been a great year for the Gulf, particularly the UAE and Saudi Arabia, off the back of President Trump's visit to the region earlier this year, and also the diplomacy that we've seen between the UAE, of course, Saudi Arabia with this White House. We have now seen NVIDIA approved to sell its most advanced chips to the region. Obviously, a hugely significant development when it comes to the UAE's AI ambitions. Minister, walk me through what that is going to unlock and what you think it says about the UAE-US technology investment corridor today.
So if you look at the UAE's history, one thing that we take very seriously is our credibility. When we make a statement, we follow through. And with that credibility, there's a burden that sometimes, unfortunately, you would make a statement, but the control is not completely in your hands. So we made a statement that we're going to invest to create a 5 gigawatt facility, which is going to be 10 times the size of Monaco, called Stargate. And the chips are not produced in the UAE, so we need to work with partners to have access to the chips. Now that puts a burden on the UAE to actually deliver because we take our credibility very seriously. This step ensures that we are able to deliver on that. And you know, the US is a great partner that the UAE has worked with for over 50 years. Now, what does the roadmap look like? The roadmap is 100,000 H200 equivalent GPUs to be deployed by May of next year. 200 megawatts is the first phase. But over the next 2 to 3, 4 years, we're going to see a huge ramping up to 5 gigawatts. Why do we want to do that? So the currency of the future is going to be tokens. Tokens that can be used and transformed into insights or intelligence that will help you in decision making, that will improve quality of life, that will improve productivity and otherwise. And we're trying to reach the capacity of being able to produce a token factory that produces 60 trillion tokens. Just to set the context on this, 60 trillion tokens is around 60% of the whole production of the world. So we are really trying to be the world's factory of intelligence.
The world's factory for intelligence. Extraordinary. 5 gigawatts is enormous, though. Are you certain you'll be able to get there?
Well, nothing is certain. I'm not certain I'm going to wake up tomorrow. So no one is certain about anything. But the investment is there. The trajectory is clear. As long as our partners work with us, as long as we're able to get what we need at the right time, then we are certain. There are so many fundamentals that need to check out. So one thing you need to understand, why did the UAE put a phase-out process? So why is it 200 megawatts, then expanding up to 5 gigawatts? It's because we aren't looking at this blindly. We are going to increase capacity as demand increases as well. You can create a 5 gigawatt facility today. It might be a very lucrative deal for you as a country or as a company. But we'll also need to see how the uptake is. There is a lot of forecasts that people are going to keep using more and more of these systems. There are a lot of forecasts that the current infrastructure is going to be what the future is built on. But as long as all of these milestones and all of these requirements continue to be the way that we're expecting, we're going to continue to ramp up. It could be 5 gigawatts, it could increase over time, or it could decrease a little bit over time. But I think from where we stand today, 5 gigawatts is what we're going to have. It's going to be very clear. We're going to be able to get to that point with the target that was set.
One of the other themes of the conference this year is about how we are in a multipolar world. And it also seems as if access to this key technology, particularly chips and the enablement of artificial intelligence, is also now directly tied to national security. Are we entering an era where countries are ultimately being forced to take sides here? The UAE, for example, firmly in the US camp, but that's not necessarily the case for African countries who need access to cheaper chips, for example, maybe even from China. Are we entering a world where countries will be forced to ultimately make that decision?
Let's answer this with a historic lens. If you look at history, countries and innovation more broadly gravitated towards the paths where there was least resistance. So think about it this way. If the US did not ban chip exports to China, China would not have ramped up its ability to create high-end chips and be able to leapfrog the way that they did. So sometimes restriction doesn't necessarily mean a positive, right? It might mean a net negative over a long period of time, especially when it comes to innovation, right? And our view as the UAE, we are a country that thrives on globalization. We are a country that works with the world. We are a country that today tries to be a good partner for everyone, whether it's east or west, north or south. However, if there are restrictions that are put forward and if our partners have concerns, we honor their concerns. Because the best way to be a partner that is trusted and that is credible is to keep your word, and we keep our word. But if you're going to tell me what we advocate for, we always advocate for a world where we all work together to try to pursue hopefully, a future that is positive for everyone.
What concerns you the most about the state of the global AI race today?
What concerns me the most is there isn't much consensus on some of the issues that really matter. So I don't know if you guys actually have seen this before, or you probably have. Today we're reaching a point where there are so many video clips and content that are so realistic, you can't actually tell that it's AI. And it reached a point where it's really concerning, where you look at the video and you're like, okay, I don't know what's true. The only way we'll be able to combat something like this is if there is a global consensus on what are the standards, what are the safeguards, what's the infrastructure that's going to safeguard us against that, and what can be done. No conversation today is progressing on that domain. So we will have an erosion of trust, and it's going to be not just critical, it's going to erode a lot of fundamentals that our systems are built on. Government is a system of trust. You know, the people trust the government, and the government is given authority to take certain actions and to do certain things that the government thinks is in its, or the people thinks is in their best interest. If that trust is eroded, what happens? Money is built on trust. The fact that I can give you a piece of paper and you think that is value, that is trust. Every single system that we have in our lives is built on trust. And if trust is being eroded, it will mean a tsunami of change that is going to be negative. And there is no conversation today that is progressing because of this tension, right? The other issue that we have is the issue of, okay, if you have super intelligence today, or let's say not just super intelligence, capable intelligence, ChatGPT, Gemini, Grok, and others, that allow people to create harm on a mass scale, biotech weapons, other, let's say, means of being able to harm people. You can try to restrict the American models. If the US and China do not work together, there are going to be issues because the bad actors are going to gravitate towards Chinese models or whichever other countries, deploying these models and actually pushing them out. So we're not having enough conversations on the guardrails. We're not having enough conversations on what needs to be the lowest level safety net. And then, letting everyone progress on whatever they want to progress in. That is a big, big concern. And then finally, the competition is heating up so much that it's actually pricing out most people from the market. And I'll give you a simple example here. So the US and China are competing. The UAE is also competing in that domain. We're all competing for the same finite amount of talent. And most countries and most companies are paying more and more and more. That means the cost of developing these models is going higher and higher and higher. And because you're trying to restrict people having access to certain chips, that's also increasing the price of chips. It's also increasing the price of these models. So what is happening over time is we are really going to become a country, a globe where there are haves and have-nots. If you can't get the money, you can't get access to the technology. And that is, and I'm talking about the cutting-edge technology. And that is going to be a concern for continents that today do not have the resources that countries like the UAE has, or the US or China.
Final question here, because you also oversee the remote work and digital economy portfolio. For the investors and the CEOs in the room who are leading teams, perhaps running big businesses, what's your current thinking on how AI is ultimately going to impact jobs and work over the next 3 to 5 years? And are we heading towards the 3, maybe even 4-day work week?
3 or 4 day work week. So if you're in Europe, probably. It seems like it. That's what the trajectory looks like. But I think at the end of the day, more work means more progress. So I think you will have a choice. However, it doesn't mean that this is necessarily the direction that you're going to go in. There are conversations of 4-day work weeks. I think they're very serious in Europe. I'm not seeing that being as serious in the US. And I don't think it's going to be applied in Asia just because the culture in Asia is people like to work. So it depends on where you're at, you're going to see that. In terms of jobs, so the realistic answer is, and I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but there is going to be job loss and job augmentation. This is a fact, and we can sugarcoat it, we can beat around that bush, but the reality is this is what's going to happen. Now, what do governments do about it? What have we done as a government? We've actually went and did a very in-depth study of every single job that is going to be displaced, augmented, or impacted. And we have put a plan of how to ensure that all of the people that are going to go through this job loss have an option. So if you are, let's say, 5 years or 3 years close to retirement, and your job is going to be displaced by AI, it doesn't make sense for me to actually invest in training you for another job. I can give you an early retirement, so it's an option for you to retire early and to live your life. If you are going into that job today, then I will pay a substantial amount of money to reskill you for something that is not going to be augmented because of AI. And if your job requires you to upskill yourself, then we will train you as well and give you the tools. Overall, what is going to happen is, I think there will be a lot of jobs that are created. We want to ensure that the interim period between job loss and job creation is a period of peace rather than a period of turbulence.
It's going to be very interesting to watch. Your Excellency, I wish we had more time, but we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining in today.
Thank you.